But yeah, when it comes to comics, I want to talk about how there was this post on Twitter that said Demon Slayer manga outsells the entirety of the American comic industry, which is insane.
Did it really?
Yeah. Let me double check real quick. I might have to cut it out because it might take me a long time. But like, I didn't question it because
that just I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Because in I think it was last year, the movie that came out is the highest grossing, even above the last one was like a Miyazaki movie, highest grossing of all time of anime movies ever.
Yeah, I did see that, but and so like I would believe that. I don't believe the comic book one. That doesn't make sense to me at all. Like the most accurate data that this is giving me is from 2019.
Here it is.
And a total for 83.2 million copies.
Wait, say that again?
83.2 million copies.
Excuse me, 83.2
million copies, yes.
Okay.
This is the most accurate data it's given me.
Okay.
Ooh, comic sales peaked in 2016.
Yeah, so that makes it, that actually makes the article true then.
That's like not that much higher, but it was, actually that's not true, it is much higher, but what was going on in 2016? Rebirth was going on in 2016, that actually makes sense.
It feels so weird that Rebirth was that long ago.
It does. When I think about Rebirth, I'm thinking like,
but you know, it feels weird because Rebirth was longer ago than we think it is, but for me at least, the New 52 started sooner than it does in my mind because it started in 2011. But to me, it started earlier than that because it feels like everything that happened to me in 2011 feels like it happened in 2005.
Yeah, 2000. How old was I in 2011?
Like 10.
Yeah, it was like 10 years ago. I was 8, 9.
How old
I was like 9.
How old are you?
19. Well, 19 next month. So, yeah.
I didn't know you were 2 years younger than me.
Yeah, so I was 9 in 2011. So yeah, no, it feels like super long ago to me.
You're like a year and a half younger than me. But yeah.
Year and a couple months.
No, it's a year and a half because.
Year and a half exactly?
Year's halfway over at this point almost. And your birthday is in a month. And then mine is in November. So it's like a year and like 5 months or something like that. But
I keep forgetting years are only like 12 months long.
Yeah, but first things first, I'm pretty sure I don't know if we talked about this on a podcast before, but we've talked about this in private, is that it's harder for people to get into American comic books than it is manga because of the constant reboots. And when comics tie into each other, it gets weird and you're not sure which comics to read if you want to follow a timeline the correct way. And because of how complicated it is to just sit down and read a comic, which it shouldn't be, it makes it hard for people to even get into it. Whereas every manga is, there's usually one writer, sometimes there's a writer and an artist working together, but usually there's one or two people with some editors and assistants working on one comic by themselves, usually, like I said, one person, and it's one vision and one consistent art style all the way through, whereas, American comics, art style tends to change every now and again. Because of that, there is no confusion of where to start. You just start and you read it all the way through. And there was another thing that a person mentioned that I was trying to say earlier, but kind of almost confused, was essentially about how, a lot of comics today essentially try to pander towards more diverse audiences so that they could gather more, readers. And essentially the quote by a person, their name is @Mokinokaro. It's MOKINOKARO. And they say that the current pandering is a desperate attempt to bring in new readers since they seem dead set on not having a hard reboot needed to remove the baggage they've had for decades. More diverse characters isn't a bad thing either, but they're being handled awfully for the most part. And I have to agree. There are some great examples. They even say themselves. The one example that they use is Kamala Khan. And of course you have people like Miles Morales, and there are plenty of other examples. But you even mentioned Kenan Kong. He is a cool character.
Wait, are you saying Kamala Khan and Miles have been used badly? Because I feel like those are the only two examples.
I'm saying that they are examples of good.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was like, those are like the only two
Oh, that's
examples of good that I
that's
can think of
literally
on the top
yeah.
of my
That's
head.
what I was saying. I'm saying that they're one of the few examples of good characters that get used great. But you mentioned Kenan Kong, who barely has been used since
Yeah, he had like his own series and then like showed up a couple of times in Superman Rebirth, and then that was about it.
Yeah, because they make these characters that, for the most part, and people will talk about it all the time, how they will take a character and literally just copy another character and make them a different race. It rarely works, but when it works, like you get characters like Miles Morales, or you get Jane Foster Thor, characters that are actually good characters. And Kamala Khan isn't really even a copy because her powers are completely different from.
She's no, she's like her own, she just shares a name. Yeah.
Literally just shares a name. Otherwise, her powers are completely different. But the biggest example is just Miles, really. Miles is the only really successful case of a character who is a different race from the original character and has for the most part, the same powers. He has the addition of the Venom powers. But he is really the only example. But every other time they do it, it doesn't work because they aren't doing it for the sake of diversity. They're doing it for the sake of bringing in diverse viewers so that their numbers could go up. And that's not good enough. You have these characters, the diverse characters that work are the characters that are created simply because you want to tell a story, not because you want to be diverse. Because if you get a Black person to write a story, guess what race the character is probably going to be?
Black. Yeah, exactly.
And they aren't doing that because they want to be diverse. They're doing it because they just want to tell their own story. And when you tell a story, you naturally want to, you lean towards telling a story about a character similar to yourself. So if you just let that happen, rather than forcing it, you'll get a lot of really good characters. Miles, like I said, is the exception. He was created by white people
and actually like succeeded.
Yeah, and actually succeeded, which is rare. I can't speak on the creation of Kamala Khan. I don't know as much about her creation.
I'm pretty sure she was also created by a Muslim woman. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, but I remember reading.
I'm not certain on that, but don't quote me on that.
Like when the first volume, not volume, but issue. Actually, no, I think it was when the volume came out. It was way after the issue of her series came out. I wasn't a fan of it. It just wasn't for me. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about that.
I really like her series. I like all her series, honestly.
It wasn't really for me. I do think she's a cool character. I just think that specifically that comic wasn't for me.
That's fair.
Maybe some of the other ones might be if I took them out. I'm probably not, but I'll watch.
I think you should. I feel like you would like some of her more modern stuff.